they will cook you really fast. They will fillet you on both sides if you're going to play their game, open sideways and think you're going to be running around with them. Now, if you know how to use your size, you can neutralize those guys. Perhaps that's what it is. You are watching and listening to the Indy Drills podcast. It's a DB podcast where we talk about all things secondary coverage and defense. We're trying to slow down those passing attacks and get everyone right. All of the defensive backs out there, whether you are in youth football, high school football, college football, pro football, we are for you. And happy to have you guys here with you. As always, the Indy Drills podcast is sponsored by this great book right here, 101 DB Tips. It's the ultimate defensive back reference guide. Everything in there from how to play zone, how to play man, how to play in the slot as a nickelback, how to train in the offseason, how to watch film, how to tackle, just about everything you need to know. Over 20 years of experience playing, coaching, and training, all wrapped up in this book written by yours truly. The very things that I use to train players from ages 13 all the way into the NFL is right here in this book. So if you're not down here in South Florida and you can't get to me for training sessions, and even if you are going to my training sessions, this is a worthy pickup. I can be your trainer from long distance. This is the ultimate guide right here. Link to it down in the description below. Thank you guys for joining me. If you've been coming for a while and haven't had a chance to do it yet, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so that you're notified the next time I put out a great video like this one. If this is your first time here, welcome. Hope I am, gonna complete the mission, and that is provide you with the knowledge that you need to improve your game and that you continue to come. So if you enjoy things here, I hope you give this video a like, a share, and also subscribe. Coming up on the show today, we'll hit the current events. We are going to talk about, since we're, one of the national signing days, we have multiple ones of those things now. And what even is National Signing Day? I'm not going to launch headlong into a whole recruiting discussion here, but we are going to discuss it. So that will be part of what we talk about today. And then making yourself a recruit. How do I get myself into position to be in position on a day like today, one of the first of two signing days that we're going to have for this current class that is coming out. We're also going to talk about planning your offseason because that's where most of you are right now. Your season is over. There are only a fortunate few now that are still remaining that are going to be continuing to play and try and win a state championship. I'm talking about you folks in high school football. Your youth football season, I say should be open, but we know how youth football is. Nowadays, these guys will play 20 games like they're in the pros. So hopefully you're in your off season and you're being a regular kid. I'm talking to the parents out there. So we'll talk a little bit about what the off season looks like, that and more coming up here on the show. So let's jump into this thing. It is one of the national signing days. As you guys know, several years ago, they started having an early signing period. That is, one of the big things that is being talked about now across college football is just how messed up the calendar is in college football. And the biggest, person in the middle of all that is Lane Kiffin, who has decided to leave Ole Miss in the midst of them making a run for a national championship in the college football playoff to go coach the LSU Tigers. I could jump into that discussion here, but I won't do that on this video. Nevertheless, we have multiple signing days. We have a transfer portal that is open. We have coaches that are able to leave around this time of year. And so there's, things are helter-skelter in college football. We have conferences whose number does not detail the teams. I mean, if you come from another country or you're aliens landing here, taking a look at college football, there's going to be a lot that just absolutely does not make sense to you. Like, why are there 18 teams in the Big Ten conference? Stuff like that. Why is a conference that's called the Atlantic Coast Conference have teams that can throw a rock from their practice field into the Pacific Ocean? Why is that a thing? a lot going on here. But nevertheless, we have a signing day. And as it pertains to defensive backs, who are the top defensive backs that are coming out? I just want to mention the top three in there in case you guys didn't know. Number one is Jordan Edmonds. He's out of Sprayberry High School in Marietta, Georgia, 6'2", 175 pounds. Currently committed to Alabama. Number two on the list is Danny Odom. And this, by the way, is according to Rivals. Danny Odom, 6'2", 180 pounds, out of First Academy High School in Orlando, Florida. Currently uncommitted, which is kind of rare in these times, but it will happen. And then we've got Chauncey Kennan, 6'1", 175 pounds, out of Booker High School in Sarasota, Florida. He is committed for the time being to Florida State, who is coming off of yet another disappointing season with fans calling for the head of their head coach. So we'll see if that will continue to be the case in terms of his commitment to Florida State. Looking at patterns here, because I'm a guy that does that. Top three guys here, all over 6 foot, and they reside from two states, Georgia and Florida. And this has just kind of been a prevailing thing, both of those things. College coaches are out there looking for tall cornerbacks, all right? They're looking for 6 foot plus guys. And if you get on Twitter and you're in the Twitter space that has anything to do with recruiting or college coaches or prospects, you will see that discussion popping up quite often. College coaches out there, and I'm not just talking about the Power 4 guys. I'm talking about Group 5, FCS, on down. Those guys are out there looking for 6 foot plus corners, and it really does piss off the guys that are not 6 foot or 6 foot plus. And there is a whole lot of a discussion around the merit of just finding guys that are that size. You know what? I tend to say to that, it is what it is. You know, I don't know that we do this with other sports like college basketball, let's say. If you're out and you're recruiting a center, doesn't it just make sense to have a center that's over 6'9"? You really can't be rolling around with 6'8" and 6'7" centers. And even 6'9" is going to be on the shorter side. If you're trying to really compete in this sport and just the nature of it, if you're down low by the basket and you've got to protect the rim, and you want easy buckets when it's dumped inside because there aren't a lot of guys your size there once you start getting to 6'10", 11, 7 foot, that you could just turn around and bank the ball off the backboard or just go in and dunk it. It stands to reason that in college basketball, centers have got to be guys that are oddly tall. The same goes on in college football when it comes to defensive backs. We know that size is not something that can be taught. It's not something that can be groomed in the weight room. There aren't protein shakes that make you taller. And defensive coordinators, cornerback coaches, defensive back coaches don't ever want to find themselves in a situation where they are matched up and they've got to deal with a certain wide receiver who's 6 foot plus, and they just don't have the ammo to deal with that. They would much rather have a guy who's maybe less skilled, maybe even a guy with less of an IQ, but someone who in that moment, those crucial moments down in the red zone, let's say, or you're just in a game matched up, against a guy like Chance Robinson, a big, tall wide receiver from Florida State, where you just don't want to be outgunned. He's 6'5", and we only have 5'10" corners, and there's nothing we can do about it. There isn't a coverage we can call. There isn't a technique that these guys use. This is a mindset. This is how they go about thinking about it. So when they're out there, they start with that thought process. I need 6 foot plus corners. And when it comes from the lower groups, the group of 5, the FCS coaches, the D2 coaches, it really does piss off fans. Well, not fans, definitely not fans. It definitely pisses off prospects and their parents and coaches of players that are pretty good on their high school football teams that don't meet that requirement, let's say. That really does upset them. And I get it. I understand that. You might have a player that's really, really awesome. He's outstanding. He's produced. He's even won battles on the field in high school against guys that were 6 foot plus, but he just happens to be 5'9" or happens to be 5'10", and so be it. I understand that. But you got to understand it from the college football coach's perspective as well. There is this outline of things that they're looking for. All of the great college football coaches have done that, not just at defensive back, but at all these positions. They have physical requirements for the position, whether it's quarterback, left tackle, center, linebacker, safeties, corner. All the positions have a matrix, an outline of what it is they would like at that position. And if you don't fit it, now you've got to do some other things that make up for this physical dimensions that you lack. And we'll talk some more about that coming up here on the show. But I'm just going to put this out there to you. How do you guys feel about the fact that college football coaches will go out there and look for guys strictly a certain size, and specifically cornerbacks? How do you feel about the fact that they'll go out there and look for guys 6 foot plus, and they're not really trying to recruit anyone that falls underneath that? You guys can let me know that down in the comments. But just speaking from that perspective, I know the coordinators and maybe even the head coaches, before they head out on the road and they start to go to recruiting, there are those requirements that are put out there. And so that particular coach going to a certain area is really looking for that. And then he's hesitant to come back with someone that's underneath those requirements. When they come back from off on the road and they have those recruiting meetings and it's kind of show and tell time and they start talking about, who they recruited in their specific area, when they're bringing up a guy that doesn't meet the guidelines that were talked about and set prior to going out on the road, it becomes an uncomfortable conversation, a lot of back and forth, and the player better be something special because, again, they're thinking about what they're going against on Saturdays, and they want to make sure that they have what they need. And from that standpoint, I think if you put your emotions aside, you guys can understand that. So what we're seeing here with the top 3 guys are all guys that are 6 foot plus, and they reside from Florida and Georgia. Why do you guys think that this is the area where they come from? You guys can kind of let me know that down in the comment section as well. I understand why you get corners out of Florida. Obviously, there's a certain, there's physical traits down there. This is a warm weather state. And, the makeup, both mental and physical down here, does lend itself to producing really good corners. It's a very competitive situation down here, whether it's the weekly camps, like what I run and what others run down here. You're getting your weekly work. All right. This is like damn near, training, off-season training. This is the center of the universe where that is concerned. And then there's an awful lot of man-to-man, one-on-one work that guys will get, whether it's at a camp or it's at various 7-on-7 events that go on throughout the entire off season, or, the recruiting camps that come down here. A kid that's playing cornerback down here, especially in South Florida, is getting so many high pressure reps at playing against a wide receiver and versus a quarterback that just the mental makeup of a player down here playing that position is exactly what you want when you're playing college football and you're potentially putting a player on the field in front of 80,000 and millions more on a television broadcast. They're already kind of built for it. And when we're in this mode in college football now where players coming in from high school have to be so ready faster, you don't get to redshirt. You don't even get to just kind of hang on the roster for that freshman year, or they're kind of pushing you into the portal to grab other guys. All of these coaches are under pressure, so they just transfer that pressure to the players. So you got to come off of that high school field and be ready. It just stands to reason that a lot of the guys that you grab for this position come from a place like Florida or Georgia, where not only do they have the physical traits, they have the mental traits as well, because the biggest jump from high school to college is the mental part, okay? And that might also be a reason why high school football recruiting as a whole is starting to dwindle a little bit, and they're opting more for grabbing guys out of the transfer portal because they've already been in the whole regimen of college football, and maybe they've even played some and been in those pressure situations. So the colleges are going and looking there first before they go to high school. So incoming, Indy Drills podcast episodes, I will talk more about that, prepping yourself and trying to remain relevant in the high school football recruiting scene as you're going up against transfer portal entries, because that's a big thing going on here. All right, who are the top 3 safeties in the class of 2026? According to Rivals, that is Jet Washington. He's 6'5", 205 pounds. Now, that's not normal, okay? That is abnormal, but he is a 6'5", 205-pound prospect out of well-known Bishop Gorman High School in Las Vegas, and he is committed to Oregon. That's going to be also a theme here, is where guys are committed to, typically to, the top teams that are playing out there. That's just something that's, lasted and been the case throughout time. Top players going to the top schools. That's just how this thing works, which makes, the kid Chauncey Kennan.
Stop. You know you didn't have all the interceptions that you wanted to have this year. So how are we going to fix that problem? I've got 2 great resources for you. First is my book, 101 DB Tips, chock full of information and tips for you to get your hands on that pigskin. Everything from how to train, how to play man coverage, how to play zone coverage, and a whole lot more. Plus, the All Eyes DB Camp members area breaks down coverages for you, technique, quizzes, all kinds of great things in there that's going to up your knowledge, that's going to get your hands more times on the football this year. Check them out. I have a link in the description down below.
Committed to Florida State, stand out. Now, mind you, Florida State has a very good defensive back, cornerback coach up there, and that's probably a big part of it. And Pat Surtain being able to land a top prospect like this, if he's able to hang on, considering all that's going on in Tallahassee these days. Number 2 on the safety list is Joey O'Brien at 6'3", 185 pounds, out of LaSalle College High School in Pennsylvania. He's committed to Notre Dame. Number 3 on the list, Jaira Edwards, 6'2", 210 pounds, St. Francis High School in Maryland. He is committed to Alabama. Alabama is still Alabaming on the recruiting trail. I've just named 6 of the top corner and safety prospects here. Alabama has 2 of them committed. Now, of course, you still got to land those guys, but they're firmly in place with 2 of the 6 players here. Looking at some patterns, once again, we've got guys that are, above 6 foot, which is kind of always been a requirement. This isn't something new at safety, but you can see that these guys are significantly bigger than the corner prospects, both in height and weight. And I'm going to say to you that we're moving back to the bigger safeties. There was a time where the safeties were coming down to being 6 foot and 6'1". And I thought the reason for that would be we're asking safeties nowadays to cover more in the slot, and that just kind of lends itself to a guy that would be a little more twitchy, which is not always what you get when you start getting guys above 6'2", especially at the high school level. They're not twitchy guys. You kind of need to be twitchy if you're going to be covering these slot wide receivers. However, now we've got safeties that are covering in the slot and learning how to use their size. I recommend that for all of our big safeties out there, is that you learn how to play big in the slot and not be a guy that just opens his hips and thinks you're going to run and hang with these quicker 5'10", 5'11" slot guys. They will cook you really fast. They will fillet you on both sides if you're going to play their game, open sideways and think you're going to be running around with them. Now, if you know how to use your size, you can neutralize those guys. Perhaps that's what it is. But I am noticing a move back to bigger safeties. That's going to be interesting to see how that plays out in terms of schemes and what these schools are going to start doing with these guys from a schematic standpoint. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. The other pattern I'm noticing here is, while the top 3 guys at cornerback came from Georgia and Florida, 2 from Florida, 1 from Georgia, none of these guys are from the state of Florida or Georgia, or really anywhere that we would consider a warm state, although Nevada, we could say that. But we're looking at Pennsylvania and Maryland here as well. You guys tell me down in the comments why we would see that, why our safeties are from these northern areas by and large, and why the cornerbacks are from the southern areas. You guys feel free to drop your comments on that. Why do you think that is? All right. It's also portal season. And I don't know if you guys know this as well. Maybe it's not a surprise to you, but who do you think, what position group do you think enters the portal the most in the game of football? Do you guys think it's quarterbacks? Because they always get a whole bunch of attention. Do you think it's running backs? What about linebackers? Is it any of those three position groups? Give it some thought. But I'm going to tell you, the reason I'm mentioning it on the Indy Drills podcast must mean that it's defensive backs. And it is. Defensive backs make up overall about 15 to 18% of the transfer portal entries each and every season. I don't know if anyone should be surprised by that. That is indeed the case. Are we the most unhappy? I guess you could say that. I would say, though, that a lot of it depends on scheme fit. Though I have said on here, it seems like everyone's running the same kind of schemes everywhere. Everyone wants to run quarters. There are different ways that it's run. In some schools, some programs will run more man than others. Others will run more zone than others. And, of course, that means a particular defensive back needs to fit that scheme. Also, defensive backs are in high demand. That's just what the game calls for. You know, it's not like quarterback where it's just one guy that's playing, one guy that's starting. Defensive backs will rotate. There, now 5 defensive backs on a regular. You have the packages where there'll be 6 defensive backs. Some will use 7 in certain situations. And then we make up a good amount of special teams. So it's a situation where a guy doesn't play right away at his particular school. He can jump in that portal, and there's probably a decent chance that he'll find another school. A lot of times it doesn't end up being the school that you want to go to. That's just the reality of the portal. For all of you guys out there listening to me who may be looking to go into that situation, the majority of the guys that enter into the portal do not end up at the kind of school or the school in particular that they want to go to once they enter in there. That's the news for most. Now, you will hear the stories of guys that leveled up, all right, in all positions. So you'll see something like a Trinidad Chambliss who came from a lower level school, or a Diego Pavia's having a really good time at Vanderbilt. You hear those stories, and maybe you feel like that's the norm. That's not the norm. An overwhelming majority of the guys that enter into the portal do not level up and go to a school of their choice, a better school. Most either make a lateral move, go lower, or in some tragic cases, don't find another school. That is the reality of it. So as it pertains to defensive backs, though, we are 15 to 18% of the transfer portal entries. And cornerbacks are slightly more than safeties in that particular position. Are we just disgruntled? Maybe that's the case. If you were asking yourself, what's the next position that finds itself the most in that portal? Well, it's wide receivers. Yeah. I mean, you probably could have figured that one out. If it's defensive backs leading it, wide receivers have got to be pretty close to that too. And wide receivers face the same situations as defensive backs. It's very much dependent on the scheme that's being run, how the ball is distributed there, where they fit in there. And then, wide receivers just tend to be an unhappy group. Take A.J. Brown, for example. They just tend to be guys that they need the football a certain amount. And if they're not getting it, they're unhappy. And if they get unhappy enough, they hit that portal. So defensive backs and wide receivers make up the majority of the portal. I don't think I shocked anyone with this news, but if you have any comments or questions about that as to why you think that may be, go ahead and hit me in that comment section down below if you're watching this on YouTube. I just want to say I appreciate all you guys listening to this podcast, whether it's streaming on Spotify or Anchor or Apple or something like that. I appreciate you being weekly listeners and loyal listeners to the show. Thank you very much for doing that. All right, time now to move on to topic number 1. And it does fall in line with what we've talked about here in the beginning here, is how do I make myself into a prospect as a DB? And I'm speaking specifically to my high school guys here. What is it that I need to do in this new era of college football where there is a transfer portal and they're going less to the high school and building their rosters that way? What is it that I need to do? I don't know overall that those things need to change. I think it really is what it has always been. And there are a number of things that you need to do. First of all, this has gotten lost in recent years, maybe over the last decade or so, because there's just there's seemingly so many ways for guys to get recruited, 7-on-7 events, recruiting camps. knowing somebody, all that good stuff. The truth of the matter is you got to show up on film. You got to be a playmaker. Yes, I know I talked about corners here that are 6 foot plus, and to some of those guys out there, it seems like all you need to be is just 6 foot plus, and you're going to get recruited. Well, no, I mean that's what makes up the top of the list. But there's 6 foot plus guys that can find a home. Trust me, I know that happens. So you do need to show up on film, and by film, I mean the games that they play on Friday, not the 7-on-7 events. Yes, do well there, but you still have to show up on Friday nights in the fall, the games that you just finished playing and the games you might still be playing now. So for you guys that are fortunate enough to still be playing and you're watching this, this is when you really need to show up, because these are the games that the college football coaches are going to watch. They're going to watch these playoff games, not the games against the small school across town that really doesn't have any talent that you guys were up 38-0 on in the middle of the second quarter. They're not really looking at that. Sure, you're going to have clips from that game that you have on your huddle highlights, but when the school and the coach really comes down to evaluating you, they liked your highlight video, so you tease them enough and they really start digging into it. The games they're going to grab are the ones that you're playing now. And if your season is over, they're going to grab those top games that you played, the games against your rival, a game against the teams that did end up going into the playoffs. They're watching those games and you need to show up on those games. So that means you need to be a good tackler. You obviously need to provide good coverage on a consistent basis. I know that's a big thing with college coaches. They want consistency out of players. So, yeah, you're going to have some of those big plays on your highlight video, but when they pop on those tapes against the quality wide receivers, programs, and quarterbacks, how consistent were you in there? Was that played on your highlight the one play you made, and then the rest of the times you were trailing the receiver, or you weren't in the area that you need to be, or you maybe gave up a touchdown or two? They want to see some consistency there. You're going to need some technique. All right. That's still a thing. I understand that they're going to go for the players with certain dimensions, but if you're a guy that has those dimensions, how are you going to separate yourself from the other guys that are 6 foot plus? With your technique. That's going to show up on film. So don't just rely on your size. Obviously, you guys that fall below the required dimensions, you're under a 6-footer, you're going to have to be heavy in technique. That's going to have to jump out on film. So if you're up there pressing a wide receiver, don't just be opening your hips and running. Like, show some technique. Show that you have an ability to stay in front of a wide receiver at the line of scrimmage, that you do know how to use your hands, and you can demonstrate good technique, getting in a hip pocket, finding the football, all that good stuff, having a good pedal and learning how to play off, or, showing some judgment in zone, all of those good things. You're going to need to show that stuff on film. And if you have speed, you better hit them with that early. That's something that captures a college coach's attention. I need you guys to understand something. These coaches are going to see hundreds of, and maybe even thousands of film. Now, in the bigger schools, they have very large recruiting departments, and they're actually the gatekeepers to, getting information to the position coaches and coordinators that are going to make the actual recruiting decisions. They just, as coaches, don't have enough time to watch all the film that comes in and watch all the film of the prospects in their area. There are guys in the recruiting department that do that. So your first task is to impress those guys, and you can feel how you want to feel about their level of knowledge about the position, et cetera, et cetera. I'm here to tell you, you might look at those guys and say, oh, they never played a down of football in their life. You can disrespect them in your mind, or maybe even out loud. You can say that. But I will tell you this. If they're watching hundreds of films, players per week, and they're in the building around coaches and players that are playing football, and if they're just hearing stuff on the cuff, or they're in meetings and they're hearing football talked about, then they're out on the field watching football go on every day, and then they're watching hundreds of film, they know something, okay? They understand something about the game of football. Now, you might not agree with them running around puffing out their bird chest or whatever. Truth of the matter is they know. So your first job is to impress that guy. So on your film, you want to put down stuff that looks good. And I'm telling you, having speed is a big factor that will grab attention. So if if you're on special teams, if you're a return guy, or if you happen to play offense and you've got plays like that, you've got a play where you caught a slant or something, or you beat a guy on a go ball and it really shows off your speed, hit them with that early. Yeah, they know you're a defensive back. They know some defensive plays are coming, but show that speed often. Speed kills. Speed is attractive. We love speed. Speed wins in the game of football. Show that early and often. Being a good tackler. Now, I know, especially at the cornerback position, that's just people have just kind of discarded that, and it's been all about coverage. I'm telling you now, in the way that the game goes now, where there are just so many short throws, there's so many throws made behind the line of scrimmage. There's so many situations in football now where the defenders have got to get to a guy that has caught a football. If you notice, completion percentages are up. Their guys will throw 70% plus completion percentages. That means the ball is getting from the quarterback to a receiver safely and more often. So that means they've got to get tackled. We can't have bubble screens and quick screens going for 10, 15, 20 yards. That's important to college coaches. So tackling has really become a more important thing than what people think. You've got to show your ability to make tackles there. You certainly don't want to show up on film as a guy that A, gets blocked, B, can't bring down a ball carrier. So tackling is being reintroduced as important. You're going to want to show that on films, definitely as a safety, since you're the super last line of defense. So if you've got some clips that you can show where a running back has come through the line of scrimmage and it's just been kind of you and him one-on-one and you got him down to the ground, doesn't even have to be a big solid hit. You just got a guy down to the ground with good technique, that's going to show. Now, if you're a big hitter, yeah, definitely lead with that. So if you're a guy doesn't have blazing speed, but you're a really good hitter, let's say as a safety, lead with that. Basically lead with what is your strength. All right. Outside of that, as much as you can, you want to look the part. All right. I've talked already a bunch about the whole height thing. You can't do anything about that, but man, you better have been in that weight room. At least look the part. When the college coach comes to the school and they want to see a guy in person, or your high school coach is calling guys down to be seen by a particular college coach or coaches, you want to come in there looking the part, man. You don't want to look like a guy that's going to need a ton of time in the early going with the strength coach. You're going to do that anyway, but if you look like body-wise, you're years away from being physically ready, that's a turnoff. Because again, all of these college coaches, if you have not been paying attention, are under pressure. They can get fired at a moment's notice. The SEC conference has just hired 5 coaches in this cycle. 5 from the SEC, the most prominent and known, talked about conference in college football, has 5 new coaches. Coaches get fired. They're constantly under pressure. And so this is something that they deal with. So the more ready you look, the better off it is for you. So you can't ignore that part. So these are the ways that you're going to make yourself a recruitable prospect. They're going to come out to practice as well. So what do you look like in practice? Do you have good practice habits? I've seen guys lose on that. A coach will get all giddy about a player that they saw on film, talk to the high school coach who does a really good job selling you because it's part of his job and what he needs to do. Then they go out to practice and watch a guy's practice habits and they get scared away from a prospect. Not really active, not really lazy, not showing much leadership. That's a problem. And when you're talking about a college coach that's going to leave your high school to go to another high school in your area and hit several high schools in your area and then go to another area, another state, another place, they're seeing a bunch of prospects. So you're competing against those guys. You're going to be competing against prospects you can't see and that you don't even know in other areas. So you want to have the practice part down right. You want to be a guy that knows how to practice because that's going to be a lot of what you do at the next level. There's a lot of practice. There's a lot of meetings. If you're showing at the high school level, you can't handle that. Transfer portal guys become more attractive. Guys in other areas that they're going to look at and recruit become more attractive. So be able to practice. I know some guys like to just turn up when the college coach So you're not a great practice guy, but then the college coach comes and suddenly you look different. On top of your teammates looking at you like, man, look at him. Yeah, college coach is here. Now he wants to practice. Now he wants to help us be a really good football team. You don't want to be that guy. Learn how to practice when no one is around because it is important. You're trying to win games. So develop some good practice habits. It'll be easy now when the college coaches come up and you're not totally out of your element. So be able to practice. These are the ways that you're going to be attractive to a college football coach, whether you meet those dimensions or not. Okay. These are the ways that you're going to be able to stand out. Have a good highlight video. Be diligent about that. I know guys that are trying to get recruited that take forever to make their highlight video. If your season has ended and you don't have your highlight video ready already, let's say you're a week out or more and your highlight video, the season is not ready yet, well, then you're slipping. You don't really want to play college football like that. I'm here telling you just how much competition there is out there. You're going to let guys in these other areas get their highlight video into the hands of the coaches before you. Like the weekend that season ends, you should be on that. Be a diligent guy, puts a good high school highlight video together because that's your entry. That's your demo tape. That's how you're going to grab that college coach's attention. And then remember again, you've got to grab attention of the recruiting guys in the recruiting department first. That allows that to pass through to the DB coach who says, yeah, this is a guy. Let me show the coordinator. And now you're a guy that can get recruited. And these are the ways that you're going to be able to do that. So I hope you guys take that part to heart. Time now for the viewer question. I always love this segment right here. I love to get feedback from guys. And I enjoy this part of the Indy Drills podcast each and every week. If you would like to have a question answered by me and potentially read on the next Indy Drills podcast, best way to do that, if you're watching this on YouTube, is drop it in the comment section down below, or you can send it to me via email to cwilson@alleyesdbcamp.com. I'm going to answer your question regardless, but there's a chance I might use it on the next Indy Drills podcast. This week's question comes from Shane from North Carolina. It says, when I'm playing off man or zone coverage and need to make a break on the ball, I keep getting stuck out of my back pedal. It's hard to explain, but it feels like my feet are stuck in the ground before I can start running to get to the wide receiver. What drills can I do to fix that? All right, Shane, great question, and it's not unusual. This is a common thing, especially for new defensive backs. So far as drills are concerned, we'll talk about that, but let's talk about why that happened. And this really all has to do with weight distribution. Typically, when I get a new defensive back in my sessions, or someone in my members area is sending me videos of them doing drills or playing in games, and they want some evaluation of it, I will see this quite often, and it has to do with you not having your weight over your toes. So if we're talking about coming out of your back pedal, your feet are only going to be able to do what your upper body allows it to do. So if you have too much weight high and back on your legs, putting a lot of weight on your legs as you're pedaling, that weight is not going to go forward until your legs are able to push that weight back over your toes so that you can be in a running position to go forward. So that's what causes the delay. You're too high and you have too much weight backwards. No one's going to run forward with their chest leaning back. If you've seen anyone running, if you've watched a track meet, if you watch guys run the 40, if you just think about yourself when you're running, in the outset, there is some kind of forward lean that you are in. You're not going to have your chest backwards. So I get it. When you're backpedaling, you're going backwards, and it just feels natural, I guess, for you to also have your upper body weight going back. I'm going backwards. So when you're running forward, it just feels natural for you to be leaning forward a little bit to run forward. So I think guys have the same mindset when they're going backwards as I'm backpedaling. For me to go faster, going backwards, I should probably lean my upper body so I can able to pedal backwards, go backwards faster, and I can stand my pedal longer and someone doesn't blow by me. I understand as I say that, the logic of thinking that way, but that's not how the biomechanics work. your feet are already taking you backwards. Okay. So you don't need to help your feet going backwards by taking your weight and pushing it back, because there's just isn't any way for your upper body, if you're just trying to go back as fast as possible, there's no way for your upper body to be beyond your feet going backwards for you to speed up the same way that you go forward. So when we're running forward, our upper body will lean out over our toes, especially in the early going. If you watch guys run the 40s at the combine, you'll notice their upper body is leaning out over their feet as they run forward. That's just not mechanically how we're built to go backwards. Okay. I have several videos here on my channel talking about backpedaling, and a ton more that I go in depth on in the All Eyes DB Camp members area to just have you develop a really, really great pedal that's going to help you in off man and zone. When you're going backwards, you need to have a forward lean. Your feet will be quick in taking you back. That will protect you from the deep ball for a certain amount of time. Your body leaning forward allows you to be able to break on the football in case the route off. So the curl routes, the dig routes, the comebacks, the hitches, all those routes, all those lower numbered routes in the route tree are available to the receiver as he's running towards you, and you need to be prepared to come out of a break on those. That's why you have that upper body lean. Your feet are taking you back to protect you against the deep ball. Your upper body leaning over your toes prepares you to break on all of those other routes. So the biggest issue that you're facing is where your upper body is. I don't even need to see video of what it is going on with you. What you've described here, I absolutely know that. I've been doing this for far too long.
If you're a brand new coach and you've been thrusted into a job and you're kind of overwhelmed, I've got a great resource for you. The All Eyes DB Camp members area will get you up to speed so you can get your guys in the right position to make plays and make you look like an all-star coach. I've got everything in there, from quizzes, coverages explained, technique breakdowns, strategy sessions, everything you need to ramp up your coaching ability and turn your guys into playmakers. Hit the link down below. Come join us in the All Eyes DB Camp members area. Greatness awaits you.
So that's what's happening to you. Furthermore, there's probably another thing that's happening to you that you're not really realizing. You're probably opening up a little bit prematurely in your back pedal. That's a common thing that's happening with guys. And when you initially open, your thought is to run deep. So you're taking your upper body and leaning it up the field as well. That's going to cause you to be stuck in the mud, so to speak, as you're trying to break. I can guarantee that that's probably also what's happening to you as well. The moment you're feeling pressure, you open up a little bit and you're immediately thinking about running down the field, so you lean your upper body upfield. So now your feet are running backwards, your upper body is also moving backwards. You don't have anything that's going to get you back downhill quickly. So your front shoulder needs to be down when you open. Before that, though, you should really learn how to be comfortable in your pedal. I've got a ton of great exercises and drills in the All Eyes DB Camp members area to help guys with that part right there, because it is super important. But you just in general, on a basic level, keep your front shoulder down when you open up, and let's try not to open up so early. Make sure we're not opening up too early. Try to stay in that back pedal. I think now if you get comfortable in learning how to back pedal and we start talking about having our weight over our toes, you won't feel that need to open so quickly. But you just need to address your upper body in general, Shane. That's going to be the biggest thing for you. Let's keep some weight over our toes. And then so far as what kind of drills you can do, there's nothing better than that W drill for working your pedal and coming out of your back pedal. All right. It's the most basic drill. It's like the number one drill that you do as a defensive back. If you need help on me explaining what the W drill is, I don't know your level of play. If you're just brand new to the game, whatever the case may be, I could certainly explain that to you. Just hit me up. You can ask in the comment section or send an email to cwilson@alleyedsdbcamp.com. But for you and all of the other defensive backs out there, and that might be experiencing this, just continuously working the W drill. Yes, it might be boring or mundane or seem a little too basic. Never get bored with the basics. The W drill is the number one drill for working your pedal and how to get out of your brakes, out of your pedal. So if you get really, really good at that, and you can never do it too much, I'm not saying overtrain to where you cause yourself some issues with, pulled muscles, etc. But if you do this every time you have a training session, you will just get better, and you will start to understand a little more about your body mechanics and where your upper body needs to be and what makes your feet quicker, what makes them slower, and you will just kind of gradually learn from that. All right, Shane. So I hope that answered your question. And to anyone else who might be experiencing this problem, you need to pay attention to what's going on with your upper body. That's the nuts and bolts of this thing. Get some forward lean as you go in your back pedal. And so far as the back pedal and all that stuff is concerned, got videos on this channel. But if you really, really want to up your level on that, hit me up and join the All Eyes DB Camp members area. Once again, if you have a question that you would like answered by me, you can drop it in the comment section down below. If you're watching this on YouTube, if you're streaming this and don't have the ability to do that, send your question to me via email to cwilson@alleyedsdbcamp.com. All right, moving on to our final topic. As I said in the outset, most of you watching this right now, whether you are, a parent of a player or you're an actual player or you're a coach, right now you are in the off-season part of your program. Maybe you're in the stage where you're just trying to rest and recuperate. Either way, you're either starting it or you're close to starting it. And so you probably need to take stock of what needs to be done in this upcoming off-season so that you have a better season. Maybe you had a great year and you just want to build on that and have a better year. Or maybe it was a not so great year and you want to turn that around. Finally, you want to fix that. There are some things that you're going to need to do this off season to accomplish that goal. And that's what we're going to talk about in this final topic right here. How do you want to plan that off season? I think your off season as a coach or a player should be centered around three things. The first is going to be your physical improvement. We all understand that part. I'm not telling you something that you don't already know. Bigger, faster, stronger. That's the goal every offseason as you're a developing player in high school and college. Bigger, faster, stronger. So you need to get in that weight room. You probably need to be a guy that picks up some weight, as is the case for most high school football players. If you're a guy that's blessed and you're big already, then you're going to want to control that weight and probably clean up how you eat a little bit. Maybe you cut some body fat, and maybe you just trim up a little bit. But that's not the case for most of the guys that's going to be paying attention to this part right now. You need to get a little bit bigger. You need to add some size. You need to think about eating more often. You might want to start thinking about learning how to cook some as well and start pursuing maybe some low-cost ways that you can do that. There's nothing wrong with chicken breast or chicken cutlets and getting something like that and just learning. It's not that hard, man. And you guys have YouTube now. You can learn how to cook some chicken breast, make some brown rice and eat some vegetables and get an extra meal in there. There's nothing wrong with peanut butter and jelly as well. Get those extra meals in there. Get yourself bigger. How are you going to get stronger? Don't miss those workouts. All right. I know how high school players are. There's so many distractions, so many other things that you can do. Guys will blow off workouts. If you're a serious high school football player that wants to play better next season or that wants to get on a coach's radar, as we've talked about, you just don't do things like that. You don't miss those workouts. It should kill you to miss a workout. You should feel sick to be in the mall, sitting at home, or playing around with friends while a scheduled workout is going on. Matter of fact, you should be trying to get extra workouts to just work on some weaknesses that you might have that fall outside of whatever those sessions were. Again, I'm not telling you to overtrain, but you should not be missing any of the scheduled workouts, okay, unless you are playing another sport. And that other sport should have workouts as well. So don't miss those. You need to get bigger. You need to get stronger. If we're talking about defensive backs, you need to get faster. And as I will say 100 times over, go run track. You will thank me later. Parents of players, young, younger, whatever, put them in track. Encourage them to run track. If they're a youth football player and you're in control, take them out on that track. They might not like it. Track was the only sport I forced on my kids. And I've got 3, and the oldest is a daughter. She had to run track. The 2 boys had to run track. They ran track because track is going to help you in all of these other sports that you're going to play. You run in sports. Track is about running. about being efficient in running, about being really great in running and being able to run fast and doing all those great things. Run track. Bigger, faster, stronger. And as defensive backs, we run all day long. No one runs more than us. Go run track. Yep, it can be hard. Yep, sometimes it's humbling and embarrassing for you to come in super last place in a track meet. Forget about all that. You're not there for the track scholarship unless you go out there and just really light it up. You're not there for that. You're there for, I run this time at the beginning of this season. Now I run this time at the end of the season, and I'm taking that increase in speed to the football field next season, and I guarantee you it's going to be noticeable. It is going to be noticeable. It will show up on film. It will be hell for your opponents, and whatever embarrassment or toughness you experience out on that track during the spring, it will pay off, and you will be happy come the fall. So it's a sacrifice now that pays off for you down the road. If you don't have that ability to go run track, you don't have a track program at your school, or there's something else prohibiting it, then you've got to go about running your sprints, putting together a program. And I do have some key framework on how an off-season speed program should look like. Got a 3-4 part series in the All Eyes DB Camp members area talking about speed development for defensive backs if you're a guy that can't get out on a track. But you've got to have some kind of program. Hopefully your school and your football program has something dedicated to that. If not, if there's a trainer that you trust in the local area, get with that guy, or you're going to have to develop your own where you improve your speed. You can't come back next year and be the same speed that you were. So there's the physical parts, the physical elements that you've got to do. Here's another part that gets ignored that drives me wild, but has to happen. You have to up your football IQ. This gets ignored by most high school football players. You just only think about the smart part of football, the classroom part of football when your coach brings it to you, when you have a meeting, or they're talking to you about it, or they're explaining the playbook. You've got to have time outside of that where you really up your IQ about football. Because you could make all these physical improvements that I discussed and talked about, and they really won't matter if you're not sure where to be. So how do you become sure about where to be? You thoroughly understand your defense, how it works, how everyone fits in it, not just you. And you learn more and more and more about offensive football and understand how they trick you, how they set you up, how they run plays, how they manipulate you, how the routes come together to confuse you, rub you, get you out of your zone, or get you off of your man to get their guys wide open. Understand the tricks that they perform on you on each play. Try to understand what formations mean, what down and distance means, all that. This is part of all the stuff that I cover both in this book as well as the All Eyes DB Camp members area, is that you need to up your IQ at football. Coaches love smart football players. They feel good putting those kind of players on the field because even with some physical limitations, they just tend to be more consistent, be where they need to be, and at the very least make a play that doesn't hurt the team. Coaches fall in love with guys that they can trust, and those guys tend to be guys that are smart about the game. They thoroughly understand the defense, and they just are up on the offense's tricks. They know what the formations mean. They kind of have an idea before the play is coming, what kind of play is coming, so they can put themselves in position to make the plays. Spend some time this offseason, more than you think, understanding football, upping your IQ about how coverages work and how offenses work. And you can kind of take that to your casual football watching as well. Watch football with a purpose now, not just to see some guys drip, not just to watch your favorite player run down the field. Learn something about the game, understand what's happening throughout the game, watch offenses, all right, and just kind of get an idea of what plays they're running, what causes them to run a certain play. Was it the formation? Was it the down and distance? Watch the quarterbacks. What did they do on certain plays? That is going to pay off bigly, if I can use that word, when the next season comes around. You're just going to be so much smarter of a player that can anticipate, on top of being bigger, faster, and stronger. So you got to spend a good portion of your offseason doing that. And the final pillar for you in this offseason that is going to make you the better player might almost be the most important of them of all, because it's going to affect the first two that I talked about. And that is becoming more disciplined. The guys that make it in this game, the guys that go from high school to get the college football scholarships, turn the college football scholarships into being a guy that plays on the field, not just being a guy that plays on the field, a guy that becomes a playmaker on the field and has an opportunity to play this game for a living at the NFL level, are the guys that have a tremendous amount of discipline. Discipline is going to get you to eat and make those meals that I'm talking about so you get bigger. Discipline is going to allow you to not miss those workouts like I was talking about so that you can get stronger. Discipline is going to get your butt up off the couch and go do the hard thing, which is run track and make you faster. Discipline is going to have you study the game and up your IQ. And the discipline is going to start in the other areas of your life. Cleaning your room, doing your homework, picking something up off the ground that you normally say, oh, I'll get to that later. Force yourself to say, no, I'm going to do this now. If you start with the outside areas and parts of your life, it will definitely bleed into football, which is the most important thing that you've got going on for you now. Just start thinking about discipline as a thing all throughout your day. The homework you were going to put off that needs to be done, do it now. All right. That's discipline at work. You're going to make discipline a part of your everyday and all day operations. And that's just going to bleed itself into doing all of these other things that I'm telling you are going to be a pillar of your success. You do these things and you show up on the football field like you will. All right. What all these things are going to cause you to be next season: bigger, faster, stronger, smarter, more disciplined. You're going to now be a guy that's attractive to college coaches, which was the first thing that I talked about on the show today. You will be a guy that attracts college coaches' attention, scholarship offers, and then on a day like today, a signing day, whether it's the one in December, where we are right now, or the one in February, you will be putting pen to paper. You will be happy, satisfied. Your parents will be overjoyed. Your high school football coach will be proud, and everyone will be happy. Follow those three pillars right there. And there's no way you don't have a more successful season outside of, injury or something, God forbid, happening to you. You get out on that field next year, bigger, faster, stronger, smarter, more disciplined, you're just going to be a better player. So if you had 2 interceptions this year, you're going to probably end up with 4, maybe even more, unless you become such an animal they just avoid you. If you were sitting on the bench last year, you'll be on the field next year. I could almost guarantee that because I've seen it happen hundreds of thousands of times over my 20 plus years playing, coaching, and training this sport. The guys that commit themselves to these things are the ones that end up reaching their goals. And that's just the long and short of it. All right, that's going to do it for me on this edition of the Indy Drills podcast. Once again, before you guys head out, hit the links down below for this great book right here, 101 DB Tips, everything you need to know about playing defensive back. Hey, I can't come to your area. I can't be all over the country. That's why I wrote a book. You can learn how to play defensive back at a top level with this book. That's the reason that I created the All Eyes DB Camp members area, is that I can train guys in other areas. Because when I first started doing this, I would get emails from all over the place, DMs from all over the place, all over the country, out of the country. Didn't even know some of these places played football. I obviously can't be in all these places, but I can certainly reach you, mentor you, affect you, and give you the tips, keys, and the knowledge that you need to be really good defensive back. So I have those 2 things for you. Hit the links down below. Really consider making this a part of your off-season program. 101 DB Tips, All Eyes DB Camp members area. All right, I think I've plugged those things enough, and I've taken up enough of your time. I appreciate you guys watching. And if you enjoyed this and it helped you, give it a like and a share. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. I'm doing defensive back stuff all day long. This is where you need to be. So appreciate that. I'm out of here. And as always, All Eyes DB Camp. Consistency breeds results.